Well, hello there. I'm Richard Maxwell, and welcome to another weekly podcast, almost weekly. I think we skipped one last week with Songwriter Night, but basically a weekly podcast, creative musical arts and sciences program at Arcadia High School. And I'm very happy to have with me today a graduating senior, Emma Berlobus. You've been on like a bunch of stuff, haven't you? This is not.
I mean, a few. I've been on a few things.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm I'm glad I'm glad you're here. How's it going? How you doing?
It's the same old, honestly, every day.
Yeah,
It's fine.
yeah.
Better
Um,
than like since it started. So
okay, well that's good. I mean, and you, I mean, to be fair, you and I have chatted frequently, I would say, throughout this whole thing.
yeah.
Do you let's just I mean, the sort of the elephant in the room, I suppose, with the whole school closure and your senior year and all that, and without getting, I mean, well, we can go as far into the weeds as you want, but I mean, like, um, do you feel like you've, because I know you started out like a lot of seniors, kind of just angry and confused and less than thrilled for, I think, justifiable reasons.
Yeah.
So where are you now?
um, well, I think like the worst part about it was that we like didn't know. Cause like I mean obviously nobody knew,
Sure.
but I think now since it's been like actually like addressed and like confirmed that we're actually getting a graduation, I think a
Sure.
lot of people feel so much better because
Okay.
like now we at least know that like we're getting something out of this.
Sure. Sure.
I don't know.
So
I'm excited.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wonder like if it's sort of like a weird version almost of like a senioritis thing in some ways. Like and I don't mean that like as in a sarcastic way. I mean like legitimately like, is there a part of this that's kind of like you get to the end of high school and everybody kind of feels like I'm ready to be done.
It's a lot of that, honestly. It's just like there's so much busy work going on, and it's like I'm so excited to be done.
Right. Well, I hope that you haven't felt that way with the stuff that we've done with CMAS and everything else.
No, I think CMAS is like one of the only classes that I haven't felt that way almost at all.
I appreciate that because otherwise I have to end this podcast like literally right, like we're done, we're out. No, but well, no, and I know you well enough to know that I figured you would feel that way because this has kind of been your thing.
Yeah.
You're going on. I mean, you're going on. To CRAS, the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences. And you've got lots and lots of opportunities and some really awesome future ahead of you. Obviously, I guess I'm wondering, like, I I don't really have anything to compare this to. As far as like a major unexpected life event
Yeah.
that would sort of shape me. Not in this. I mean, the closest thing I can think of like something that affected like such a massive amount. I'm not saying things haven't happened in my life that haven't affected me. I just mean like outside of like, family or like a close group. But the idea of like such a, like the entire country or the entire world. And the only thing I've been able to come up with that's even remotely similar. I was talking to somebody earlier this morning actually about this in one of the workshops. Just that like 9/11 is the closest experience I can think of where there was like a sort of like a group sense of, okay, what's happening and it's affecting everybody. But that didn't hit the way this hits you because 9/11, which I realize is just a tiny bit before you were born. 9/11, like I can remember the day of, and everybody kind of like, you're like in a sense of almost panic and you don't know what's going on. One of my older brothers at the time had an office near the top of the Sears Tower in Chicago, of all things. So we were all kind of freaking out, like, because we didn't know what was what. But within about a day or so, there was a lot of anger. Obviously, there was a lot of emotion.
Hmm.
I don't know that we felt like personally, like with the potential of feeling like the unsafe issue that you still kind of is, do you know what I mean? So I don't really even know. I guess I'm sympathetic to what your aggravation.
Yeah.
Mr. Maxwell.
Oh, hey, we have a guest.
I have a guest.
We
Yeah.
have a
Hi.
guest.
Hello.
Hi.
If I may, can I add on to what you were saying?
You can. Do we get to guess who the guest is?
No, it's a mystery box guest.
Oh, it's a mystery box guest. Okay, that's fair.
Really, yeah. I don't know. It does feel like that there is more, almost on a daily basis during this entire um, pandemic. I find I'm thinking about a new industry, a new like factor of life that is being altered in some way, either permanently or temporarily. But I find myself thinking about new people and new industries, and oh, I didn't think about how that would impact them. And it seems like a daily occurrence for me, where absolutely things were different. I remember for the film industry, certain movies had to be pulled for 9/11.
Right.
Certain movies about terrorism, or if there was like a plane um, crash or something. The original ending for Lilo and Stitch was actually a 747 flying through Hawaii, and they went back and reanimated it
Oh,
to be a spaceship because it's more fun and family free. And absolutely, they absolutely good call on their part. But things were altered, and things kind of had to be like things had to be maybe backtracked and sort of brought back to the drawing board. And obviously, flights were canceled for a number of weeks. I think a number of weeks, but there was this rebound that happened sort of
right, right.
pretty
But
quickly.
and
Pretty quick.
I don't disagree with you at all. I guess I was just thinking in the context of, a teenager during 9/11, and you're upset and you're worried, but it was sort of like you got through that, and relatively quickly there was a sense of, okay, now I can at least move
Yeah.
forward even with those changes you're talking about. Whereas I feel like now, over time, I think about like somebody like Emma, and sort of like, and to be fair, like I was saying earlier, I don't know if you heard or not, I mean, she and I, I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna be surprised, Emma, you and I were talking a lot over the course of this about different projects, but also just what was going on. But I feel like there was always a sense of like, well, maybe, is there a possibility? I can remember when this first happened and you reached out to me and you're like, okay, they've shut us down for a couple of weeks. Do you think, like, and we were all kind of like, well, we might be back. We didn't even, like, we were like, in a way, like I look back on that and I think the notion that we were even talking about, like, yeah, they might still do prom, or we might still be able to have songwriter night in the auditorium. And I was totally like open to that idea at the time. And now I think about that and I'm like, what in the world? Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I guess, and so I suppose I'm wondering, like, to some extent, as a student, like, where did you, or and maybe you haven't, but I mean, you seem like you're in a better place than you were a month and a half ago or so with all of this. And I guess I was just wondering, is that just because you're like, you know what, I just, no matter how I get done with high school, I just want to be done with high school, or was there some other?
I don't know. I think in retrospect, like even with 9/11, it's like after a while, there's such a sense of unity in everybody that it's just like, okay, this is life right now, and you kind of just have to like roll with it.
Sure.
It's not like I don't know. I feel like I was so angry for so long, and like you said when we were talking before, like there's nothing left. Like I have exhumed so much anger that I'm just like I'm here and
Right.
that's it. So like might as well make the best out of it, I
Well,
guess.
but maybe that's good. I mean, I would say that puts you in a better place, that you can move forward, because I think it's okay for this to shape you. I don't think you should let it define you,
Mhm.
and especially, I mean, you're going out into an industry that is, in a weird place right now,
Yeah.
but oddly, at the same time, like, so there are people that only deal with, in like, say, the live sound world. or in the live music world, and they have serious concerns,
Yeah.
justifiable ones, venues, and the trickle down of all of that, people taking care of the spaces, and this isn't even just for live music events. I mean, sporting events, and
Even
they're talking about having like the teams will play, but there won't be crowds. And the live concert industry is basically officially, unofficially decided that it's, as far as like major tours and festivals and things, they're done until 2021 because
yeah,
and to, I mean, and you can't. I mean, it's like on the one hand, you look at the economics of it, and it's just, I mean, you're talking about like I think it's like a $9 billion industry annually. It's some like astronomical amount of money. Um, but at the same time, who in the world, you know, there was a statistic that, not to freak anybody out, but that said something like you could have somebody, what's the term? They don't have it. They're a carrier. So they don't
Mhm.
even they're not even sick themselves, but they could infect unwittingly like a third of the attendees at an event, just from being there and just normal interactions and the way this whole thing. I mean, so I think that there's, there's something we said. On the other hand, there's so much, and I don't know if our special box guest wants to comment on this too. I hope it's okay. He's joined us for this segment here, But
I apologize.
no, don't apologize. I think it was a good clue. You gave a good clue to your identity earlier by immediately jumping into film, because that was a shock. Um,
Well,
yeah, no, but like post production is becoming a bigger field now, because, I mean, and there's all this work. Like I'm watching a lot of live shows that normally, like late night shows, for example. And on the one hand, it's scaled way back, but at the same time, somebody's got to refine those things. Somebody, it's not like, and don't get me wrong, I love the guy and he's brilliant, but it's not like Colbert or Kimmel or any of those guys are themselves sitting in front of a computer doing the post production to clean up their videos, or even just to set things up, where are we hanging mics and all that other stuff to figure it out. So I think there's also opportunities for people,
yeah,
you know, uh, especially possibly, I think people like yourself who have a better resume than you maybe give yourself credit for, but are also willing to like you would take jobs I wouldn't, not because you're foolish, but because I mean this very seriously. I'm looking at things like I got two little kids, as you know.
right.
So, you have an independent element to your career right now that actually I'm kind of jealous of, in that regard. But it also gives you some opportunities. Heck, somebody could even be like, hey, Emma, there's a gig. It's in San Antonio, and you're like, okay, and you could drive out to, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
to say I couldn't take a gig like that, but
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
the thing. Like I've been thinking, or before Corona, I was always so torn between like, oh, do I want to do live sound or do I like want to do studio sound or like theater? And I think like while I'm like kidless, might as well like tour the world, you know?
Sure, absolutely,
But like
absolutely.
I feel like you can really like transfer into like any type of sound if you have the right education. So like
Whoops, sorry about that. That's a bad CMAS joke. I'm sorry.
I don't know. It's just like the industry's definitely going to change, I think, for the
Mhm.
next few years, like at least until maybe we get a vaccine or something.
Sure,
But
sure. Do you think as somebody, I mean, obviously you are younger than I am.
yes.
Although I'm not as old as our guest, but I'm, he and I are of a similar generation, if you will. Uh, but do you think that in some ways, like I've thought about, like I separate it all out. Like the economic impact of this is awful and devastating and in no way good. But there are little things that have been happening that I wonder if societally, like the fact that, like, maybe people now will be a little more aware of, just the need to take better care of themselves, and that was the other thing that's different about, we were not to bring it back to 9/11, but 9/11 was very much indiscriminate. There were no pre-existing condition elements. This
Mhm.
thing, I realize, is still mutating. I realize we still don't know a lot about it, but if you're not taking very good care of yourself, if you haven't been, just generally, practicing some basic, you know, things, you are at an increased risk. And so that is a positive in a way. Even little things, like I noticed, like I read a thing about how people are like, just like when they go like get groceries and like fresh vegetables and stuff. And we're lucky our food supply has not really been impacted.
Yeah.
But people treat the food better and are more like things you probably should have been doing anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like there's some of that. I have heard stories of, for example, without naming names, I do know of people doing things like bleaching bananas, which is probably not a good idea.
I told you that in confidence.
Did you? Okay, I'm
No.
sorry.
And did you say I was older than you?
I didn't say. You know what? Your hearing is, it's at your age, you might have misheard. It's possible.
I was gonna say I was a teenager during 9/11.
Well, and you might still be a teenager now. We don't know. We don't know who you are. You could, who knows who this is.
This is unbelievable. Sorry, if
No,
I could
please.
add something. Something did occur to me when we were talking about that. I think the biggest difference I would say between the two, obviously there are many differences, but it did feel like 9/11 was almost a breaking of spirit
Mm-hmm.
for the country. And I think what makes this current situation bigger is it is an absolute breaking of spirit in so many ways, but also all of those fine details that you're talking about in health, in food, and taking care of ourselves in individual industries. Like it's so much more. It's so much more. That's
Yeah,
it. Period.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Whereas like there, it's not that I don't want to boil 9/11 down to just this, obviously, but it did feel like it was first and foremost a breaking of American spirit. And I know that was like for my generation, that felt like the day we realized, oh wow, yeah, we are not as safe as we thought we were, I suppose.
Right, right. Well, and to some extent, I think there's a little bit of that still going on.
True.
So let me pose a hypothetical. I am curious, and actually, I would throw this to either one of you. Let's say a gig comes along, and it is, let's say it's for a live event, or a tour. Let's say somebody reaches out to you, and this could very easily happen. Um, you know, let's say, Emma, somebody says, okay, look, we are about to relaunch our tour, and it's X amount of cities and X number of days all over the world, let's say, um, and it's a good paycheck. It's not like, you're not going to be like, you know every meal's like, McDonald's if you're lucky kind of situation, and you're not like, and like 80 people trying to find, like doing rock paper scissors for who gets the bunk on the bus, kind of none of that. I mean, it's like a legit gig. I am wondering, just, and maybe I don't know if you've even thought of it, it's like what time frame, like if somebody offered you that tomorrow, would you even consider taking that gig? And I'm not asking this judgmentally at all. I'm honestly just curious, like have you considered like when you feel like you'd be comfortable? And I'm not even talking about, we're not going to go into you saying, well, I haven't graduated high school until next week, they're not going to hire me. I mean, forget all that part of it. I mean just more like the context of like when would you take the gig?
I mean, I would honestly probably wait until like maybe even December. Like I just like I'm taking like a gap year just because like one, like yeah, I like need to save money and I need to work and I need to like take a break, but I also like don't want to do online school,
Mm-hmm.
like and I don't.
Well, and to be fair, I don't know if you really could. I mean, you can to a point with what you're going to do.
Yeah.
but all the online, I mean, I don't want to sound ridiculous, but you've exceeded the expectations of what could be accomplished in an online forum at this point in this area. You know, like your audio training now at this point needs to be in the spaces with
Yeah.
like you can't do any more virtual simulations. You've already gone. I mean, obviously you can mix and you can do things in your own home environment, but that's going to basically be you doing the same thing you've already basically gotten so good at. Like you're not going to, you'll get experience from doing that, but it's not like you can be like, whoa, okay, now I've like gone another level. That's not,
Right. I
you
won't
need to be
really
in it.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my point being is I don't even know educationally. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to reach out to the guys at Crass, what they're planning on doing. Cause I think they're in the same boat everybody is. How do you put people in a room?
Yeah, I think I've heard like a few states have already announced that they're gonna stay online for next year.
I think California schools, have already done that. And I think a couple of others.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like I don't want to risk it because like my mom has asthma, you know,
Sure.
and
Yep.
I don't
Well,
know.
yeah. And you don't want to bring things home. I mean, I get that. I get
Yeah.
that.
And I also
So,
don't want to become like a carrier for others as well. Like,
right. Right. Sure. That's fair.
yeah.
So okay, so let's move off of the post-apocalyptic vibe. Um
Aw.
I know. Sorry. I just limited your entire movie catalog by like at least 50%. Um okay, so no, but I actually do have a question. So let's go back
Okay.
4 years ago, which is just unreal. Because I still remember you very much as a freshman in that history class, which I think is actually very interesting. A lot of people I don't think realize that about you. As much as you became kind of like the go-to person for CMAS in so many ways, you didn't. I mean, you started in CMAS, but you didn't start out in the um in the more technical pro. You know, you weren't in the career part. You were in the industry analysis part,
Yeah.
and then you kind of started doing the stuff anyway during that year. That was kind of funny to me that like you just started showing up at gigs and everything. So let me ask you this. So, and I don't mean that, I mean, well, you can talk about it in any context you want. When you look at that 4 year trajectory, have you had any moments of like, oh, okay, now I see a path where you didn't before at all?
Um, Honestly, yeah. Like, I think so. I turned 16 in sophomore year, and that's the year that I was hired for to be an auditorium worker. And that was the same year that I started working in like community theaters and stuff. And I realized like wow, I can actually do this without needing like you or Fairchild like to be there and to like help me out. And it was like I know enough to actually be able to do this on my own. And that was kind of just like I was like, wow, like I can actually make a career out of this if I wanted to. Like I'm getting
Right.
paid. This is crazy. And I think it really like helped me mentally to know that like I could do this on my own because of you and because of Fairchild. And like it's helped me a lot like with because you know in freshman year I was just like I was so anxious and scared to like do anything. And
I
it's really
recall.
see how much I've grown, I guess.
Sure, sure. So with that, I mean, and I know that it's something you're probably going to roll your eyes a little bit at, but you have a wonderful singing voice. Yeah, there it was. Uh, but you do, and that's just a reality. I know you don't sing a lot, which I think is kind of unfortunate, but that's a separate conversation, I suppose. You also play bass.
Yeah.
I'm wondering because I've seen you interacting both in live settings with other musicians, and I've seen you in studios working and helping and basically helping other musicians to get the best out of whatever it is they're doing.
Mhm.
Do you feel like are they separate? Do you see any connection? I mean, I know, like I said, I know you don't perform very often, which I think is unfortunate, but I mean, I understand. And I'm the last person to judge anybody for that, heaven knows. But I mean, um, do you feel like you rely on those experiences in any way as a producer?
Um, I don't. Okay, I don't do much like studios like work. But I can see how like having like the experience that I have, I can see how it would like tremendously help a performer, especially a live performer, even a studio like just recording like your album or something. Like you know what goes where, and you know like if something's going wrong on stage, you can troubleshoot it yourself maybe.
Sure.
And um, I
Well, let
don't.
me be more specific then, because I remember. So we're in Nashville 3 months ago, two
Yeah.
months ago, 3 months ago, I guess. And we're in Blackbird Studios, which is an absurdly expensive and beautiful facility. And you're running the sessions for the most part. I mean, Steve Marcantonio, God love him, just kind of looks at you and he just walks away. And like the coolest sort of way. It wasn't like he was angry. He was just like, I don't know why I'm here. Um, you know, did you realize? I mean, I know we've talked about it since sort of, but I mean, I got the sense you didn't quite realize what was happening in the moment. You were just so focused on, I'm in front of the board. I've got all these different spaces happening. I need to get something done. It was interesting to sort of watch you work through that. What was going through your head?
I don't know. It was kind of just like running any other session, just
Did
on
it
the.
hit, like, when did it hit you that, I mean, did it hit you at any point that you were like, oh my gosh, I just ran sessions at freaking Blackbird as opposed to, our cobbled together. Don't get me wrong, for a high school, we're doing fine, but it ain't Blackbird.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just like right when I walked in, it was just like I'm back, and like it was like I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like I'm ready.
Right, right, right. Okay.
It wasn't just
Because,
like it wasn't like a hit. It was just like a stagnant little line of me just being like, "Wow, I'm here."
okay.
And I'm
Okay.
ready.
So, okay. No, and that's great. And I'm actually, that makes me really happy to hear. So then go back 2 years before that, because that was the second time. To be fair, this year was the second time we'd been in Nashville. We'll be going again. Maybe we can take you as a chaperone. I got to figure out how that works. But, like, did you? Because you were active when we were in Nashville the first time, also. Um, but it was obviously it was different. But
Yeah, I think actually, I think I did have like an aha moment. It was when I saw their patch bay, and I realized that I knew
wait,
almost everything that was like plugged in
was
and what
this
for.
last trip or the one 2 years ago? This trip, okay.
Um, and I remember just like standing next to you, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know what all of these are for.
Right, I remember you saying that. Yep. And we were looking. I remember we were looking at the chart, going, "Oh, we should totally steal that idea for the chart."
Yeah,
Or the mute switches
yeah,
in the little room, which we then built and did, and then I upset all my engineering students because they didn't get to build all the switches. That was really funny to me. And so that was one of those crossover moments. I don't know if I told you about that or not. So I guess where do you see this? Again, forget the pandemic. Do you see like point A, point B, like do you see it charting for you in some respects as far as like career path and like where are you in 5 years? Where are you in 10 years?
I hope I'm in the industry, but I think I need to like go to crass first, and I need to chart those waters,
Mhm.
and like really learn all that I can
Sure,
before I decide like where I want to go. Because I don't, I'm aiming towards like touring and like live sound,
sure,
but I kind of want to like as I get older, I kind of just want to go into studio sound and all that.
sure. Well, and
So
they do stuff that we haven't able to, our guest does a bit of this, but like they have a whole broadcast section.
yeah,
And actually, the other thing they have, and I know you know this, and and this one I can honestly, because you've told me about some of the stuff you do on your own free time. I could totally see you doing like the gaming thing that they do, all that gaming sound stuff.
Yeah, I actually used to I was kind of into like video game design for a while,
Oh, no kidding.
like freshman year a little
Okay.
bit. Um, like I wrote like scripts for video games and stuff,
Oh,
but
cool.
and I had a friend who would like help with the coding and everything. I don't know. It was like a thing that I was really into for a long time, but I don't see like I don't know if I like see one like a stable income for it. Like it takes a big resume to like get
Sure.
into a big like studio like that. So I don't know. It could be a thing, but I don't have much experience with it. So that's why
Sure.
I kind of want to go to class and see like all the opportunities that I have.
Yeah, well, I think that, and we've talked about this, but I suspect that you are basically going to be able to kind of choose your own adventure, as it were. I really do. I think you're going to just knock it out of the park there. I think you'll basically be able to just kind of, hey, where do you want to go, Emma? And they're going to have like umpteen options for you. Minus the issues of obviously, like I said, the pandemic and everything else that's going on. But we're not going to be in that forever.
Yeah.
I don't think. I don't think. Um, okay, last question. I think. I don't know. Give me. I don't know. What would be if you were gonna give some advice to a freshman student coming in to the program? First of all, would you even think like is it something freshmen should be involved in, or is it something they should wait
No,
till sophomore
100%
year?
they should be involved. Like my freshman year in the history class, like I saw what was happening and I was like, wow, that like I've been dreaming like about something like that like since like fourth grade because my dad, you know, being into like DJ stuff in Europe and everything. Like I grew up around it, you know,
Right,
and
right, right.
it was never an opportunity handed to me until like I took that class and I was like, hey Maxwell, do you think I could like
Right. I remember that I literally remember the very first conversation, and I was sort of stunned because you would participate in the class in this way that like you wouldn't speak a lot, but then you would turn in these like incredibly insightful observations about everything in the industry, or you would make these little comments and be like, whoa. Like you kind of just like you could tell you were gonna be who you've become. Like it wasn't really a shock. Um what advice would you give somebody coming into the program?
um I mean, don't let anybody tell you that you can't freaking do it. Not even yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can do literally anything that you can like want to. I have firsthand experience.
Do you do you I guess I'm sorry. I have one other question. I want to ask. So the entertainment industry, and I know our guest here is going to have something to say on this too, but I am honestly curious how you feel about this. So as a young woman in 2020, the entertainment industry in all of its forms has progressed in a lot of ways, and in other ways it has gotten worse. Or maybe it's just we know about. I don't know. I mean I've seen some commentary that says basically it's not that it's gotten worse. It's just we now know about it, which is maybe better. At least we're aware. But do you have any thoughts about um uh your role in all of that, or like moving on into the world? Do you have concerns, or do you have I don't know what the word is, a plan of action? I'm just wondering, like, how do you, because it would be completely dishonest of anybody to not acknowledge the fact that as a young woman, you are going to be subjected to probably some idiots, if I can say that nicely. And I mean, unfortunately, you have been, not because of you. That's just unfortunately where society sometimes is.
Yeah, I think what I'm like coming to realize is like when that person did the whatever that they did, there was a really strong like an overwhelming sense of just like backlash towards that person and people being like just standing up for like me, I guess. And it
Right,
wasn't that they knew me. It was just like this is wrong and you need to like just get out.
right.
I think like as we know more about what happens in the industry with women, I think like there's a lot more allies.
Mhm.
And there's a lot more people who can actually stand up if you're not able to.
Right.
And
I guess I'm wondering, like, like, not to sound silly, but I mean, and not in a hostile way, but I literally over the years, I have seen high school boys get completely weirded out by you. Not in a bad way, but just because they're like, why does the little girl over there, like, their first response is, how could she possibly be in charge? And then it's very clear why you're in charge. And then it's just like the entire, like, high school male mentality is like at odds with like, because like I think a lot of people think it's a boys club, or it should be,
yeah,
so I guess I'm wondering, like, where do you sense maybe that those kinds of either experiences, because the idea that you're not going to have them as an adult in the industry, I think again would be kind of
yeah, I don't know.
false.
I mean, I have had those experiences with like guys who won't listen to like what I ask them to do or like cuss at me because they think I don't know anything, and it's like I know it's probably gonna happen, but I mean, hopefully, like I have people to like back me up and be like, "Yo, this is wrong. Like you can't treat people like that." And if
Right.
we don't have people like that, I don't really know. Like,
Well, and I think also, to be fair, you are, you don't like to brag on yourself ever. You're like I have a list of students who could use some more ego. You are one of them. But you have I mean, you know your stuff. I mean, the reality is you do know your stuff. And I do think that to some extent, like, for me, when I think about somebody like you moving on into the industry, oddly, I think that that's maybe in some respects your biggest defense. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be in any situation that's unsafe, but in terms of like just like the sort of demoralizing stuff, the glass ceiling things, the oh, she couldn't possibly do it because she's a girl garbage, that kind of stuff. I think the reality is that you step out pretty quickly and are like, okay, you're an idiot and I'm doing my job, which I mean, I've seen you take on that role. It wasn't really an issue of your gender, but I've seen you actually be yelled at by people while you're doing your job, and we've, I would like to think fairly quickly interceded on your behalf. I'm not going to name names. I can think of two right off the top of my head, incidences that happened. And I know there were a few others. And that's not to say that we live in a bad community or that people are unsupportive, but I remember witnessing, those things happen. But you managed to hold your composure. And in both cases, actually, now that I think about it, I don't know. Do you remember? I remember your response to both cases. I don't know if you do. Your
I
initial
don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, I don't want to. Let me see. Both of them happened during live events. One of them happened during a live event. I'll give you a hint. It was outdoors. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the other one happened not during the event itself, but there was some, uh, what do we want to say? Public criticism that was, I'm going to just say the word misplaced.
Okay.
But in both cases, it's interesting to me, and I don't know if you remember this or not. You were pretty pissed off, and justifiably in both cases. But you were also, I remember when you immediately started talking to me about it, you're like, I'm so angry, but then you're like, your next thought, if my recollection was basically, what is wrong with these people? Like, which I think is a good thing to have. Like, you didn't buy into, oh, I'm somehow like they're somehow right, which I think is important in an industry like this. Like, I wonder if some of the pushing back against the stupid is simply standing up and saying, no, this is not, I agree with you having the support of other people, but I think that you're a stronger person than you sometimes are willing to acknowledge or admit. And I think that helps, unless you totally hid your true responses in those two situations from me.
The the issue, like, I think the reason that I was so angry was because like I was already very comfortable like in a live setting, and like I know that I know how to run sound. And um my biggest issue, this was like, what if it wasn't me, like what
Right.
if it freshman me or like anybody else, I took it really well. Like, I'm gonna just say that, like, I
No,
did.
you did. That's my whole point, though. And the fact that you were worried more about how it would affect other people is astounding to me.
I just, yeah, I was so angry because it was like, what if this ruins, like, what if that ruined it for somebody? Like,
Right. But who
and
thinks like that? Nobody thinks like that. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's why I guess that's why I wanted to wrap up with that as far as that goes, just because I think that that's a really important part of this, is that you have a selflessness about it, that even when you were personally under attack, your literal concern was not about you. Like, you didn't buy into it, you didn't care, and you were more worried that somebody else could be negatively impacted by it, which is
yeah,
good. And I think the sign of somebody who's going to be a consummate professional and will probably, I have a feeling that there's going to be, we'll be watching a broadcast of some major event or something, and your name will be up as like the producer, and we'll be like, well, of course. And then I'll say, don't forget about the little people now that you're big and famous and powerful in the industry. That is literally, that is my thought. Um, I I could talk to you forever. And I appreciate all of your work over the years. You know this. And I know we're working at having you come back and do some things when all of this other craziness calms down. But it's been cool these last 4 years working with you. It's been, even in this fourth quarter of just whatever the heck it's been really awesome. It has been truly fantastic. And I just want to thank you for that. Real quick before we go, I apologize. Our special guest, I don't know if we get a reveal or not. I'm thinking about just turning the camera on. Like, what happens?
Here.
What happens if I just turn the camera on?
Try it. Go ahead.
I don't know what's gonna. Okay, I'm gonna turn the camera on. Why not? Wait, is it? Oh no, see, it's just saying I can ask to start your video.
Bummer.
That's too bad. That's too bad. Well, I did want to say that this guest was definitely better than our regularly scheduled guest, who just seems to go on and on and on about movies and TV and film and stuff. And so this was a better guest.
I heard that guy's pretty cool.
I think you bumped your head. I'm not really sure.
Great. Thanks. All right. Thanks.
Actually,
yeah. Imagine if you and I just had a normal podcast, it would be 4 hours every episode.
That's true. And it would be very much like the old Seinfeld show, where it would be 4 hours, but about nothing.
About absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So that's what I'm there. Summer project.
Vaguely amusing.
There you go. But probably only to us.
Correct.
Actually, I do want to thank Mr. Luce for joining us and actually having some really cool comments today. I appreciate that. I actually appreciate the fact that you've shown up for almost all of these in one form or another.
Is this the last one?
It's not the last one, but it's the last one of the school year.
All right.
Because next Friday we will be technically out.
Technically.
because we finish on Thursday. Emma will be a graduated Arcadia senior. Off
Congratulations.
to bigger and better quarantining, or I don't know what'll be going on at that, at that point. Probably that.
It is a little like, and obviously I'm not going to compare my experience as a teacher to a student who should be getting graduation and prom and all those events. I'm not absolutely not comparing it to that, but there is a little bit of a graduation, finish the school year, and we go on a vacation. We do not go on a vacation. That is bad. We stay home.
Yeah,
we usually, my fiance and I, we usually go on like a trip. We're gone the very next day, or if we can, or as soon as we're done with our teacher days afterwards. And no, we'll go to the zoo. We'll drive through the zoo. Is what we're gonna do.
Can you do that now? Can you drive?
Yeah. Mr. Huffman did it with his family. You can drive through the zoo. You have to buy a ticket. You can't just go. You can't just,
Yeah, but still,
monster
you can
truck
drive
through.
Wait, which zoo?
The Phoenix Zoo. It's called Cruising the Zoo. You can go buy tickets. Yeah.
I'm so gonna do this. I had no idea.
You're not allowed in my car.
What? But I thought we were friends.
Get your own car. You can do it on your bike.
There you go. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I actually biked by the zoo yesterday. Not
gone in. Should have gone in.
I probably should have.
Bike route confuses me.
Or you can go to Arizona.
I've never been to Arizona.
I don't either.
Anyways,
all right.
Sorry,
well, there we go. I think we have a plan in place now for after next. That's after next week.
I think so.
Mr. Luce, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
I really, really appreciate it. I hope you won't be offended. I'm going to boot you for a second.
Bye, Luce. It was really good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you, Emma.
Have a good summer.
All right. I'll leave.
Thanks, Mr. Luce. I really appreciate you. All right, Emma, I'm going to run. I'm going to let you run. I just want you to know how much I have appreciated the 4 years, how glad I am to see you smiling with all the garbage that's been going on, because I know it has not been easy at all.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate all the work over the years and everything that you've done. And I am really glad that you're going to be around still.
Me too.
So, okay, folks, I guess on that somewhat somber, congratulatory end of the school year, end of the ride kind of vibe, we are done with another episode. I really do want to thank Mr. Luce for lending his thoughts and comments. And I want to thank everybody for listening. We are going to have more of these. I suspect you will see Emma, even as a graduated senior, around in various capacities, doing things. I want to thank her for talking to me today about just, life in general in the music world and all that other stuff. And you can catch more things at arcadiacmas.com and lots of concerts, lots of other podcasts. And we've actually got a whole bunch of new music that we're going to drop in the next week or so as well. So keep looking out for that. And just thanks again for being here, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.